And here we are. After 29 weeks and the strangest season of Overwatch League to date by far, we have made it through and are getting ready for the playoffs. First of all, I have to give a massive shout out to everyone involved in Overwatch League this season. From the players, to the coaches, to team management, to production, to league organizers, Season 3 of the Overwatch League brought with it a set of challenges that no one had predicted or accounted for, yet they dealt with it about as well as you possibly could have. While homestands would have been amazing this season, we still got a ton of heart-pumping action throughout. That being said, we still do have to crown a winner at the end of it all, so how are the North American teams looking as we head into the postseason? So, this is where you're gonna live up to your potential, right? This is the part where you put together the top 5 performances that were projected in the preseason, right? All that confusion on stage where you look uncoordinated and uncoached, all the changes at flex DPS and flex support, that was all just experimenting so that you know what you're doing now, right? All those times where you lost composure after dropping a map to a beatable team, that was just to lower everyone's expectations, right? You're gonna win now, right? Sure hope so. For the caliber of player on this roster, mediocre is not an option. Atlanta needs to make a deep run in these playoffs or it is a disappointment big time, and heads will most likely roll when it's all said and done. Well, welcome to the postseason, Boston, I guess. Look, I'm gonna be real here. The Uprising are 2-19. They're on a 12-game losing streak. They just don't deserve to be here. I know it, you know it, we all know it. Boston has looked completely checked out ever since the May Melee. Any potential that this team showed at the beginning, with players like Jerry and Punk a little later on, has completely fizzled out. And now we're stuck with what feels like a husk that's pretending to be an Overwatch League team. I would be embarrassed if I was a fan of this team. It's clear at this point, Season 1 was a fluke. Or, at best, it wasn't a fluke, but the reason for that rhymes with musty, and he's long gone. Boston, I'm begging you, just take your participation trophy and go home. Don't pull off an upset. I don't want Kraft to start thinking that this is salvageable. What could send the message that this isn't working more than a last place overall finish? That's all I'm saying. Another season for Dallas, I guess, wasting incredible talent and disappointing the masses of people that continue to support them for some reason. I'll give you props though, you gave Arrow the boot. I honestly didn't think you had the guts to do that before the season was over. And to be completely fair, ever since their coaching shuffle, Dallas has looked kinda decent. They seem to have settled into their starting 6, Onigot and Paintbrush look integrated with the rest of the team, players like Gamsu and Note have been able to play their comfort picks a lot more, and taking decisive wins over teams like Toronto and Vancouver has to be a good shot of morale going into the playoffs. But we all know how the cycle of Dallas goes. Any second now, they're gonna collapse and lose a game that they should have won, and the calls to fire Yong will be even more intense than the ones for Arrow ever were. Is there a chance that Dallas can make a run? Sure, but the cycle of Dallas has never failed so far. I'll believe it when I see it. Watching Florida transform from a laughable bottom feeder to a genuinely respectable team over the last 2 seasons has been a lot of fun. The Mayhem have finally figured out how to rebuild a team, with the management first. Kuki has done a great job with them and deserves to be mentioned in the Coach of the Year debate, as Florida looks clean and organized in every composition that they play. Not to mention the individuals, like BQB becoming a hit scam threat to rival Saya player, Fate returning to form on main tank, and rookies like Yaki and Gangnam Jin becoming valuable assets right off the bat, filling some of the biggest holes on the team that were present in Season 2. The Mayhem are still going to struggle against the true powerhouses of this region who beat them in overall star power, but Florida is absolutely the most improved team in Season 3, and there's a lot to be excited for as they make a run for the championships. Listen man, I try my best, but I have no idea what's going on in Houston. I don't think they really know what's going on either. I mean, fine, we're sticking with the hydration main tank for at least the rest of the season. He honestly hasn't been that bad, so okay. The issue with the Outlaws for me is the fact that they just can't get all their gears turning at the same time. Usually Dante is doing a good job, pulling his weight and then some on Tracer and Sombra, but then you get to players like Meko, Repel, Jexay, Blase, Linkser, and while any of them could pop off on any given day, it's equally likely for any of them to just completely disappear for an entire series. I feel like transitioning from an all-English roster to a mixed one has been a big challenge for Houston, and while at times they seem to be close to figuring it out, there are other games where they just look completely lost. Houston has a chance to make a run here, but so many things have to go perfectly for them that I wouldn't bet on it.
Gather round, ladies and gentlemen, do I have an investment opportunity for you today? Looking for a dark horse team to go far in the NA tournament bracket? Look no further than the LA Gladiators. Their stocks are on the rise, and you'll feel like a fool if you don't buy in before it's too late. Why the Gladiators? Well, I don't even have to talk about why their off-tank space is so good, nor do I have to tell you why their veteran support line gives them a solid foundation. You already know that, but feast your eyes on this. Birdring, finally getting close to the potential that he showed all the way back in Season 1. What about OG? After getting to play Winston, his best hero, OG has recovered his confidence going into these key playoff matches. And are you looking for a flexible player that can plug into any spot like a Phil Swift approved roll of flex tape? Introducing Mirror, TPS, tank, support. You have no idea what he's going to play next, making the Gladiators nearly impossible to predict. The Gladiators won 2 key matches in the final week of the regular season, taking out Atlanta, and then their Los Angeles brethren in the latest installment of the Battle of LA. This means morale and confidence are at an all-time high. The LA Gladiators have a fine chance of making a deep run in these playoffs, and by golly will you regret it if you miss out on this grand opportunity. I'll start the bidding at 100 SR. Do I hear 100?
At the start of the season, everyone, including me, looked at a roster with players like Dreamer, Gig, KSF, and Lastro getting significant playing time, and wrote them off completely. And for decent reason. Most of these players were either relative unknowns, or they were known but didn't have the best track record. But now, KSP is popping heads left and right, becoming the hitscan star that this team desperately needed. McGravy has grown into his role and puts in consistent performances on D.Va and Sigma. Lastro has secretly become one of the more bloodthirsty Baptiste players in the league, and the main tank duo of Dreamer and Gig has become something to fear. The LA Valiant are the ideal of what you can do on a budget if you invest in incredible scouting and coaching. I have to give props to Packing 10 and his crew, because they develop these diamonds in the rough expertly. I sure hope the Boston are taking notes. Paris has turned into one of the most exciting teams to watch in this entire region, and it only takes a little bit of watching to see why. You know you're gonna get something great whenever you watch an Eternal game. Whether that's Sparkle slicing and dicing through the enemy, FD God pulling off some incredible boops, Hanbin with clutch gravitic fluxes, or Fielder owning the competition with 200 ping. They have more than earned their respect in this region. As the 3rd seed, Paris are one of the favorites to take it all the way to the championships. However, to do that, they're gonna have to take down one of the teams that are above them. And while the Eternal did it before in the Summer Showdown, that was in a meta that was practically made for them. In the current meta, Paris looks a lot less comfortable, and it's most likely going to get even weirder come playoffs. The Eternal have some challenges to work through, but if you had to bet on anyone to come up clutch when it matters, I'd bet on this team. Make no mistake, the Philadelphia Fusion are the powerhouses that everyone expected them to be this season. Their DPS quartet of Carpe, Ivy, Hisu, and EQL make them practically meta-proof as they seamlessly switch into whatever they need at the time. Sato has turned into the top 5 main tank that this team always believed that he would be, thanks in part to a Rookie of the Year caliber support line and Alarm and Funny Astro backing him up. Then you get to off-tank, and you have 2 fantastic players in Fury and Poco that they could swap out at a moment's notice. This team is stacked, no doubt about that. They're just missing one thing: a trophy. 3rd place in the main melee, 2nd in the Summer Showdown, 2nd again in the Countdown Cup. First place has eluded the Fusion all season long, all organization long. It just feels like they can't help but stumble when the pressure is at its highest. But you know that this has made Philly hungrier than ever. They want to make Overwatch League Season 3 their first championship. They just might will it into existence. The defending champs are right back into the mix in 2020. Even though a few questions arose when San Francisco lost star players like Architect and Sinatra, they haven't skipped a beat and are entering the playoffs as the second overall seed. Over the course of the season, Smurf and Striker have combined to become the scariest Winston Tracer dive duo in the entire league. Their ability to isolate and pick off opponents is simply unmatched, and that's combined with what is possibly the best support line, with Moth, Twilight, and Violet being swapped around whenever the team needs them. On Flex DPS, they can throw all sorts of curveballs at you with Rascal, Tayo, and even Super. And most importantly, no matter what they play, they're clean, polished, unshakable, and they strike fear into whoever runs into them in bracket. But things aren't all daisies for San Francisco. They've proven to be just one step slower than the other top teams in adjusting to new metas, and who knows what the meta on the playoffs patch could be. It's very possible that someone could catch the shock off guard early, and then they would have to pull off another miracle losers bracket run. Will they still have it in them? Here's the deal. The Defiant really do have some decent pieces to build off of. Logix, for example, is still a fantastic hitscan player who can bail this team out of tough fights. And players like Kareev, Nevix, and Agilities are very consistent performers, at least on their comfort picks. Toronto showed how good that they could be when they took a semifinal finish in the Summer Showdown. But if that's their peak when everything is going right, man. Between Beast and Numlock, the Defiant still don't really have a top 10 main tank to work with. Not to mention that when these players are forced off of their comfort picks, they look way less, comfortable, less coordinated. And honestly, since Agilities likely won't be able to play his signature Genji, we're probably not looking at another Summer Showdown-esque Cinderella story. Toronto, to me, are like the gatekeepers of the basement right now. They'll beat the really bad teams, maybe get out of the knockout rounds, but lose to anyone with even a little bit more coordination. But, as always, it's up to them to prove me wrong. The Vancouver Titans aren't last. And yes, that is an accomplishment. Listen, I miss the OG Runaway Squad as much as anyone else, but props do have to be given to the current Titans. They've been forced to come together as a team and get used to the highest level of Overwatch play in the middle of a season, yet they're still a pretty respectable team led by genuinely great talents like Shockwave's Hitscan and KSA's Off-Tank. Will they be able to get very far in the playoffs? Almost certainly not. It will take some massive career-defining performances from all of the players at the same time. But the Titans aren't a complete laughingstock anymore. They will hurt if you let your guard down, and that is scary. I'm excited to see how Vancouver continues to build off of the core that they established this season going into the future. Washington is a very interesting case, because honestly, if this had been their roster from the very beginning, I would have bet on them going pretty far into these playoffs. Decay is obviously an incredible talent and can play basically any hitscan to the highest level possible. He is the hard carry that every team needs on that role. And on the other side, Tuba has been coming into his own on heroes like Genji and Pharah. Zhanu is a great, well-rounded off-tank, and AimGod is a solid flex support. Sure, I would want them to try and improve on players like Roar and Arc, but this is still a pretty solid team on paper. The problem is the fact that the Justice haven't had much time at all to build synergy with this roster. Like, less than a month. To me, I look at the Justice and I see a team that wasn't expecting to lose Corey and Stratus mid-season, and ever since they've been trying to fill the holes that they left behind. Now, I think they've finally gotten all the pieces to get back to where they were, but they just haven't had enough time to put it all together. The Justice will most likely get taken out pretty early by a team with more overall coordination, but this will definitely be a team to watch going into 2021. Oh boy, I get to jinx 2 teams this time? Alright, let's go. who do I think is going to get top 2 and qualify for the championships? First, I'm gonna say the Philly Fusion. They're just a star-studded roster that I'm sure can take on anyone in this league and win. And the runner-up curse doesn't matter because they can get second place and still qualify. And for the second spot, I'm gonna say the Paris Eternal. First of all, this is an insanely talented and entertaining roster, but why didn't I choose the Shock, who, I admit, objectively have a better chance to qualify? Two main reasons. One, I don't want the Shock to win again. Not that I don't like the Shock, but I'm here for content, and repeat winners is just kinda boring. Just ask the NBA. Secondly, if Paris qualify for the championship, they get to travel to Asia. You know what that means, right? We'll get to see Fielder on good ping, and that is something that I want to see. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Overwatch League content. What team are you rooting for in the playoffs? Let me know in the comments. Until next time though, that's all from me. Don't get tilted.